All right, folks, it is Friday, March 28th, 2025. A lot of folks are still following March Madness. I think that after this evening, we'll be down to the Elite Eight, and Duke is definitely one of the Elite Eight. But in terms of the news, there's a lot of news going on in society. Powerful earthquakes rock Myanmar and Thailand, killing at least three in Bangkok. High rise collapse. Dozens are missing as a massive 7.7 quake rocks Myanmar and Thailand. So that is something that we're seeing in the news. And apparently, 81 are trapped in a Bangkok building rubble. So that's something that is going on in the news as well. Israel launches airstrike near Beirut for first time since the ceasefire. So since the November ceasefire, this is the first time that they have launched in the Beirut area. So definitely looks like they have killed 22 Palestinians in Gaza. And definitely there are, excuse me, mass evacuations as Israel strikes Beirut suburb. And King Charles has been briefly hospitalized after side effects from cancer treatment. So, smiling King Charles making a public appearance after his hospital stay. King Charles experiences temporary side effects of his cancer treatment. And Pope Francis's doctors are concerned they stopping treatment to let him go after serious breathing crisis. That's something that was reported a few days ago and everything like that. But Pope Francis, apparently, according to his doctors, came near death in the hospital, and that's what his doctors have reported. And the Vatican has published a Holy Week schedule without clarifying whether Pope Francis will preside. So that's something that is going on as well as Pope Francis continues to uh, be recuperating, and definitely we'll see how the Holy See handles those events. And a former Australian police officer avoids prison after killing a 95-year-old woman in a nursing home that he tasered and everything like that. But it looks personally he's been spared jail over the fatal tasering of the 95-year-old. So it looks like he's avoided prison in that area. And a U.S. Defense Chief, Pete Hedges, vows to counter China's aggression on first Asia visit. Hedges tells the Philippines the Trump administration will ramp up deterrence against China. Hedges says U.S. to boost ties with Philippines as deterrence against China, peace through strength. So he's looking to reassure the allies on the first official trip to Asia. And there's still a lot going on in Turkey. Erdogan's jailed rival says his lawyer has now been arrested. So protests are the last thing keeping Turkey's democracy alive, according to an article in The Economist a few days ago, and all along those lines. And Russia's Putin says it would be a profound mistake to dismiss Trump's push for Greenland. As Vance heads for Greenland, Trump's land grab hopes gets Putin's thumbs up. Putin says Greenland nothing to do with Russia in nod to U.S. So definitely Putin sends a clear warning as Trump tries to take over Greenland. And a suspected U.S. strike pummels Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. Houthis weakened but not broken by first rounds of Trump strikes, according to an article in the Wall Street Journal. And the Europeans are vowing to stand by Ukraine, but disagree over the forced proposal. So France UK plan for European troops in Ukraine falters, but Macron says too early to consider lifting Russian sanctions. So France and Britain will lead a mission to support a future Ukrainian peace deal, Macron said yesterday. And back in Hamas intimidation, Gazans hold third straight day of rallies against the terror group. So Gazans demand an end to 18 years of Hamas rule. So protests demand an end to war and suffering, and Palestinians are protesting Hamas in a rare public show of dissent in Gaza. And few Americans now see Canada as a close U.S. ally as Trump strains a long-time relationship. Canadians are really upset, and Americans should pay attention. That was from an article in the Boston Globe. And Australia to hold federal elections on May 3rd. So Albanese faces headwinds ahead of the Australian elections. China ties, renewable push. That's some of the things that are at stake in the Australian election. So Australian Prime Minister Albanese calls for a national election for May 3rd. Who knows? Maybe we'll get Shaquille to come in here and give his insights on that national elections, as he is a person that spends a lot of time in Australia. At least 6 dead after a submarine carrying tourists on a reef tour in Red Sea sinks off of Egypt. That was reported on yesterday. So that's definitely still being investigated and all along those lines. So we've got these things going on in the world. Let's see what's happening in the United States as well. Because, like I said, there's a number of things taking place, and we're definitely trying to keep on top of them and all along those lines. Rubio says the State Department has revoked at least 300 student visas, and definitely that's something that's going on in the news as U.S. revokes hundreds of visas to repress student activism, and that's something that folks are talking about as well. And J.D. Vance and a U.S. delegation head to a weary Greenland, so Vance and his wife, to tour the U.S. military base in Greenland after a diplomatic spat over the uninvited visit. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. And an ambush arrest of Tufts student sparks new concerns about immigration crackdown. So something no one's ever seen before. Arrest of Tufts student raises legal questions, according to another article in the Boston Globe. And Jenner and Block sues to stop a Trump executive order against their law firm. So another law firm targeted by Trump sues to block punishing executive order. So these executive orders are just coming down left and right. And Utah became the first state to ban fluoride in public water. So you won't be getting any fluoride in your public water in Utah. And bipartisan senators overseeing military requests, Pentagon investigation into the use of signal. So definitely the whole notion of the signal case is still being up there in the news, and we'll see whether there's any fallout of that about this as well. And Stefanek's return reveals the GOP's fears. So a warning sign flares as the White House refused to moderate its shock politics, as Stefanek's withdrawal suggests Republicans are sweating their thin margins. So at least Stefanek detailed team player decision to remain in Congress after Trump requests to pull UN nomination. And Elon Musk promises to go to Wisconsin to personally deliver $2 million to voters in that Supreme Court case and everything like that. So Elon Musk to give talk in Wisconsin ahead of a closely watched state Supreme Court race. Super important. And he says he'll be in Wisconsin Sunday ahead of the Tuesday state Supreme Court election. So we'll see whether his money influences that election. And Trump targets improper ideology of top U.S. museums with executive order. So Trump targets improper ideology at the Smithsonian Institution. Museums and parks must remove some items related to race and gender, according to this executive order, something about restoring truth and sanity to American history. So that's something else going on in the news as well. And RFK Jr. announces plans to cut 10,000 jobs from U.S. health agencies. So a lot of folks are going to be losing jobs in the health agencies. HHS employees who took separation incentives still waiting on promised administrative leave. So lots going on in that space. And judge orders Trump administration to preserve signal chat about Yemen. So judge in crosshairs of Trump deportation case orders preservation of signal messages. Judge moves to prevent Hedges, Waltz, and others from deleting their Houthi texts. And Trump targets another large D.C. law firm where Robert Mueller used to work at. So definitely these executive orders are just coming left and right. And Trump's state secrets claim over deportation flights details breaks with past practice. So definitely a lot's going on. And NPR speaks to a former education secretary about dismantling the department. So borrowers have zero power. Trump moving student loans to SBA sparks concerns and confusion. And definitely some people are saying that the dismantling of the Department of Education will have negative impacts on students with disabilities. And human rights groups rebuke Kristi Noem's visit to El Salvador prison, political theater. So how Kristi Noem's $50,000 Rolex in a Salvadorian prison became a political flashpoint is what the Washington Post is talking about. And Noem warns immigrants doing tour of El Salvador prison where deported Venezuelans were held. So it looks like she is threatening that more might be coming to that particular prison. And the Education Department has opened an investigation into California schools' gender identity law. So Trump challenges California on transgender parental notification. So McMahon threatens Newsom with federal funding cuts over transgender athletes. And Democrats are outraged that Trump changes pouring millions of dollars into two special elections in Florida. So definitely a lot's going on, and Trump has definitely influenced a lot of what is taking place. And devastating South Texas floods submerge cars and impact hospital after pounding storm dumps inches of rain. And there are definitely stranded motorists and cars found on those valley roads and all along those lines. So it's definitely flood sweeping South Texas and nearby border cities in Mexico. So who knows when we'll get some of that bad weather here on the East Coast. And Mark Carney says tariff forces new era for Canada U.S. ties. Canada's prime minister says the U.S. is no longer a reliable partner on trade. So we'll definitely get into some conversations about this and other stories. I've got Rick Rosner with me and Dr. Sharice, so see if others join. But what's your take on all of this? I was actually earlier looking at a poll, and apparently Trump's numbers are starting to tank and everything. There was a
Oh, so let me pull up the numbers. He lost his initial goodwill, but every president tends to do that. At least recently, now that our politics are super polarized. Let's see if there's been a further decay. Not according to Real Clear Politics, which is it's not as good as 538 was, but 538 is out of business. So I don't like. And then on Real Clear Politics, his approval is held up by shyster companies like Rasmussen that were kicked out of 538 for doing crappy polls. But yeah, he's underwater, and he will continue to his approval will continue to slowly drop as he continues to be incompetent and do things that piss people off.
Yep. What's happening in Bangladesh, Sharif? What's going on in your world?
Yeah. Many things happening in Asia Pacific. Right now, our country head, he is in China. He met with Xi Jinping, and you know that China, especially One Belt One Road initiative, is one of the major initiators or partners for Bangladesh or the Asia Pacific economic developments. So I think they do. It's very natural. They go for commitment to develop infrastructures and invest in Bangladesh, and especially in Bangladesh, if you focus that Bangladesh like a small islands, but we have lot of populations, and most importantly, if you see this South Asian parts, it's near uh, the sea. This is the place where that everybody can come in Chittagong. Everybody can do trade and commerce in Chittagong area, in Cox's Bazar area. So that's why strategically Bangladesh is very valuable uh, for South Asia. On the other hand, if you see this Nepal and Bhutan, they have a lot of natural resources. India has a lot of populations. Pakistan also has a lot of populations, and strategically behind with Bangladesh, it's called Seven Sisters. India Seven Sisters doors is in with Bangladesh. So I think that is the issues that USA, North America, Europe, or China and Japan has very good interest about trade and commerce in Bangladesh. From my World Talent Economic Forums in Chittagong Business Incubations, it's called CHUET Business Incubation Centers. We are developing different innovations. What I shared that we developed Kokoro mean wisdom app. Japan closely work with me. Definitely North America closely work with me. Many famous universities from North America and Japan, they're closely supporting my initiative. So mm, it's an example of opportunity in Asia Pacific. Lot of opportunities we have because of we are emerging economy. We are very virgin and we have lot of population. It's a very big markets. Uh, so I think that it has a good future, but definitely USA is a global leader. How they play a role for complex issue in between Russia and Ukraine, in between Israel and Palestine. This is also playing a major role. But hope for the best. I think many things will be solved under this Trump administration.
We'll see how that works out. Hopefully, some things will be solved, and we can get some trade and other things going on.
Did you touch on inflation, which is 2.8%, not declining, and certainly will be going up under the new tariffs?
Well, some people are thinking that I didn't touch on it, but some people are actually, one of the surveys, there's a large amount of people that think that we're already in a recession. So I don't know your take on that, but I did see a survey that I think it was a significant portion of the population that believes we're already in a recession, even though I don't think a recession has been officially declared.
Yeah, I don't know what the official definition of a recession is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, and everything. So we'll have to find that out. Maybe some of our other people, they come in, they can give us the official definition of a recession. But I did see that a lot of people believe that we're in a recession. I'm imagining that a lot has to do with the cost of living and the cost of food and the cost of housing and a number of other things in that space. I did have a lighthearted yet serious story that was coming out of Kansas. I think you'll enjoy this one because you come from the movie industry, and one of the old memes of movies as well as TV shows in general is kids love to have people check underneath the bed for the monster under the bed, and apparently a babysitter in Kansas found a monster because the babysitter was asked by a child to check for monsters under their bed, and they were stunned to discover a man hiding there, police have said. So the incident occurred earlier this week at a property just outside the city of Great Bend, where a sitter was seeking to put the child she was looking after to bed. However, one of them was afraid. One child complained there was a monster under their bed. When the victim attempted to show the child there was nothing under the bed, she came face to face with a male suspect who was hiding there. Police said in a statement, an altercation ensued with the babysitter, and one child was knocked over in the struggle. The suspect then fled the scene before the deputies arrived. Later they identified the suspect as Martin Villalobos, who once lived there, a young 27-year-old man, and they eventually arrested him, and he was charged with aggravated kidnapping, aggravated burglary.
Another movie meme is people having to get years of therapy after a trauma, and I'm sure that family and babysitter will be meeting with
therapists, because there'll be years of trauma, because they were thinking that she was thinking there would be no monster underneath there, because that's usually not a real monster, but they found a actual person hiding under it. Yes, they'll be doing years of therapy. By the way, a man accused of setting fire into Tesla vehicles in Las Vegas has been arrested, police say. So are we going to see more terrorism attacks on Tesla? Because I did mention earlier.
I feel like it's, I mean, maybe a few, but I feel like the wave of attacks has subsided for now. My hometown, there's news of, I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, and they got the Sundance Film Festival starting like in 2027, which is bittersweet for me because I mean, I lost all my family's gone. I have no more reason to go back. I used to go back to see my mom and my aunt, but they're gone now. But Robert Redford went to school across the street from my frat. He lived in the frat that's across the street from the frat that I was a member of. And back in like 1960, he stole some books from the frat, sold them to pay for a trip to New York, where he became a star on Broadway and then a movie star.
Yeah. Hey, just really quickly, Sharif, I mentioned it, but as I think before you got here and everything, but how far are you from Myanmar and Thailand, and did you get any of that powerful earthquake as well? Because I did see that it rocked some of the countries, and I think those countries are near you. So did you feel any earthquake in your part of the world?
Yeah, definitely. I think the earthquake started from Myanmar. So what I'm discussing, it's not far from Chittagong, but in Dhaka we feel earthquake, and even few of my friends, they live in Bangkok. I think Bangkok right now they have emergency. They also have earthquake. So this is one of the concern. From our side, Dhaka. I do not want to say it's very planned city. It's not well planned and for urban planning and anything. And this is one of the things we are very, very concerned that we need to develop our urban planning and everything. Uh, but I discuss with many of my friends; they are safe, but hopefully it will not create a lot more problem. Pray for us.
Yeah, definitely. Pray for y'all and everything. Hey, uh, Rick, just really quickly, because one of the other stories I mentioned was about the Smithsonian and everything like that. And we know the Smithsonian has some museums that are narrowly defined, because I know that when I went to Obama's inauguration, there's the Native American Museum. There's also the African American Museum that a late friend of mine helped construct, that being Theo Freelon, and all along those lines and everything. But if I'm reading this right, those institutions could be gone, because it says President Donald Trump on Thursday revealed his intention to force changes at the Smithsonian Institution with an executive order that targets funding for programs that advance divisive narratives and improper ideology, whatever that is. The latest
So
step in the broadside
before
against
you,
hold on a second, he deems too liberal. Trump claims there has been a concerted and widespread effort over the past decade to rewrite American history by replacing objective facts with a distorted narrative driven by ideology rather than truth, adding that it casts the founding principles of the United States in a negative light. So he signed this order behind closed doors, and it puts J.D. Vance, who serves on the Smithsonian Institution's Board of Regents, in charge of overseeing efforts to remove improper ideology from all areas of the institution, including its museums, education and research centers, and the National Zoo.
or well, you can't look at American history without including factors of race. We came in here and displaced Native Americans. The U.S., at least the whole original 13 colonies plus a few more, were constructed with unpaid labor by enslaved people. I mean, all that is part of history. And you know, the one theory of Trump's second presidency is government as revenge. That he is he's governing, or what he calls governing, to cause pain to the people he doesn't like.
Wow. Hey, Jacoby, I was saying that it looks like Trump is targeting the ethnic museums of the Smithsonian, because he just signed a new executive order where he wants to examine all of the Smithsonian. So that means that maybe the Native American one, shucks, the aviation one might even be in trouble, as well as definitely the African American one. Then I know Phil as well, and he was one of the designers of that. But I was just wondering your take on this attempt to be politically correct with the Smithsonian.
Can we take out the quote unquote politically correct? Can we actually say, as I've been saying ever since he was elected, while he was during the election, if you have melanin in your skin, you're not welcome in the U.S. That is what he said. Literally, he's done that. Every action that he's taken has shown you that. So if it is not white male, Donald Trump is taking it away. So HBCUs are on the chopping block. The African American Museum on the chopping block. The Holocaust Museum on the chopping block. Anything that is not white male, that is what he is taking away.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Holocaust for a second, because there's the best known Holocaust is the one perpetrated by Hitler. 11 million people, 6 million Jews, 5 million gypsies, gay people, Polish prisoners, Russian, just straight up murdered. But in a very short time, in 3, 4, 5 years. But the U.S. had a couple things that could be considered holocausts. The Native American slow rolling Holocaust that rolled out across centuries. The deaths of millions of Native Americans, and then the deaths of millions of enslaved people across a couple centuries. And it's part of the fabric of our history. And the way we learned history, reasonable people learned history, is that the U.S. is a shining city on the hill. But we've made lots of mistakes. But we strive to perfect ourselves, and that we have a system of government that lets us do that. and that we stand for decency, that the World War II was a war of good against evil. And we've lost a lot of that since Trump entered politics.
Yeah, we've definitely lost a lot of that.
So I'll put it to you differently though, Rick. Honestly, did we lose it or did we ever have it? So the reason I say that is to point out the fact that no, Trump, I will never say that Trump created racism or started racism or started bigotry and all this other stuff. I'll never say that. Why? Because then as you fabric within our nation and within our society. What I will say is that he gave literally.
Hey,
what you're saying? Oh,
yeah, you're going.
Am I back yet?
You're back.
Just really.
Oh, I'm in a bad section.
Yeah, in the bad.
All right, but hold on. Let me respond. Where we kept idiocy and prejudice somewhat contained. I mean, we had outbreaks. The KKK, popped up and resurged in the 1920s, but mostly like communities. Like with face-to-face, it's much harder to be a racist asshole right in the face of your community, of your church, of your small towns, when people can correct you to your face. But with messaging now, social media makes it easier for hateful people to connect electronically, and for people to get bombarded with messaging that makes them feel okay in expressing hateful sentiments.
Speaking of hateful sentiments,
well, Rick, that's actually part of the point that I was trying to make. I apologize getting hit a bad area, but yes, that's why I say, did we lose it or did we actually ever have it? What you're pointing out there is where I'm saying that Trump gave it a megaphone. He gave it a platform, even though it was on those different, from Facebook to Twitter to whatever social media was out there, even MySpace and everything else. Even though it was there was anonymity to it. But when Trump came about, and actually it started truthfully more so with Sarah Palin than it did with Trump. Because when Barack Obama came into play, there was that, everybody hated him, and a lot of people hated him because of the color of his skin. And it's sad to point that out, but that is the reality that we have to actually be able to accept. And when we look into our history, that's the way it was. I mean, if you look at the stereotypes that they even use now, from calling different African American women in Congress Jasmines and the Jezebels, the Mammies, and all this other stuff, those were old code words and stereotypes. And believing that, there was the one congressman from New York who was a teacher. He actually lost, but he's gonna beat me up because he's big and black. The Magic Negro stereotype that was always there, that has always been used within our society, but was given a platform because it's put at the forefront. Trump has, when he was getting into running for president, look at some of his tweets. He retweeted white supremacists, and people just pushed that aside. There was a gentleman who rode on a golf cart, and it had Trump was great, but on that golf cart in that video, he yells out white power. Trump pushes that out there to his many followers and says, hey, this is a great American. So when these things get pushed out, and this racism and bigotry and misogyny and everything else, this hatred gets put to the forefront and given a megaphone.
Yeah, but
was that really? Did we lose it, or was that ever?
But we're rehashing semi-old news. We should
just really quickly. Speaking of old news, I see we've got Kim here with us, and she just came from a big rally. But I definitely want to get to, before the rally, something that I know she's very passionate about, and it is back in the news, and it is actually one of them agencies that was impacted by some of Trump's actions. But it looks like they're on the 6-month anniversary of Helene, that wildfires are burning again in western North Carolina and everything like that, and also in North and South Carolina, as more firefighters are arriving to go to that area that had already been impacted significantly 6 months ago. So I didn't know if you've heard anything more from your friends in that particular region, Kim.
No, I'm actually heading up to Western Carolina area for the weekend. We had booked a vacation weekend up there, and I might check it before we head out because we know. But I've had this trip planned for quite some time with my best friend. But no, there's just a lot of things going on, and I think stirring the pot is what Trump and his affiliates are best at doing. Causing commotion over here and drawing your attention over here so that they can do things over here. I mean, who's to say that signal oops was not intentional, so that everyone would be over here, accusing them of this and this and this while they're over here peddling some other things, which, I mean, hardly doubt because of their merits. I mean, we're just talking a bunch of people who work in the TV industry. They're not government security. And I want people to know, when you are cleared to do government top security, you don't go texting crap on threads and group text. I'm sorry, that is the number one way hackers can get into you and know everything you're doing. If they had created their own system, VPN through Elon's stuff, and they had their own bubble, their own VPN, maybe. But this just goes to show you how either really stupid and careless they are, or this is their way of putting up a smoke screen of drawing everyone's attention over here while they do something over there. And, we've lost our relationship with every country out there. And I've actually started canceling all of my trips. I do not want to become some cartel sushi or some other country's hostage because of what Trump is doing. And I think that that's going to start happening. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of hate towards Americans, and it's going to get nasty. And, FYI, you go to another country, ditch that MAGA hat. In fact, I've talked to MAGAs who are in other countries right now. I would not be caught alive in Cozumel because you might end up dead. But in Cozumel right now, we have 2 people who were timeshare owners, and they were in a dispute. I don't know if they weren't picked up and put into prison right away because of the dispute, because the dispute was pretty stupid to begin with, or if they are just being used as an American hostage situation. So, I don't know, but I would like to forewarn people. Other countries are banana. That's what they use on TikTok. They're not allowed to use the word banned, but other countries are banning people in and out. They're being told that they can't travel to America. They're canceling. A lot of people are canceling their vacations. I'm told that Canada has excommunicated us greatly. This was a talk I had with someone this morning. I don't know how bad that is. Maybe Sasha can enlighten me. Is it dangerous for Americans to come to Canada right now?
Well, some Americans probably keep coming to Canada once in a while, but they're definitely not welcome. And if people identified you as an American, they politely wouldn't even talk to you.
So
Right.
my wife is.
Thank you for the update, Kent. I appreciate that.
We're traveling in a while to my kid's wedding, which is not in the U.S. And my wife is having me shut down my Twitter account for the duration. So when we try to come back to the U.S., that I don't run because they're starting to deport people for what they've written in newspapers and stuff. And I keep telling her, no American citizen has run into this. And my wife says yet. So just to be safe, we're going to make my Twitter inaccessible, I hope, to the authorities, because I have tweeted a bunch of stuff about how much I don't like the what is happening under the current president.
No, and you do need to be very, very careful, because they may be looking for any reason to arrest you. Kind of like the couple that went to Cozumel for their vacation, and they were detained at the airport and thrown in prison, and they're not going to be they don't even get a hearing for months. They're just sitting in jail rotting right now.
We should give a little bit more.
What?
We should give a little bit more background. This couple got signed up for a timeshare, a pretty expensive timeshare.
Yep.
And then they weren't allowed to use what was promised, that they were promised points.
That's typical. That is so typical.
And then
Misrepresentation of the
they
world
say you're going to get this many points per year. You trade in those points for weeks or 2 weeks or whatever at various nice resorts. And they went to use their points, and they were somehow prevented from using them. So they quit paying, and they filed a dispute with their credit card company. The credit card company, and I guess later judges and arbitrators, agreed that they didn't get what they were promised, and voided their debt.
Yeah,
but then the timeshare company was like palsy with, I don't know, somebody in Mexican government, and said these people ripped us off to the tune of many tens of thousands of dollars. So even though the couple had a legal judgment that absolved them from the debt because they got ripped off, the Mexican government disagreed and is now holding them in jail with no possibility of getting out until the case is heard 6 months from now.
Hey, quick question for
you.
y'all.
And it was a dispute, and that the timeshare did file criminal charges against them. So the minute they landed in the country, but I just want to tell people, you know what? Don't travel out of the country right now. It's super, super dangerous. It's just super dangerous.
And the Shadow has come in and said something. He said, I can only wish Mega's World would go to other countries that they have, and I would see how they get treated and everything like that. So that's what the Shadow said on YouTube. But we got Steve Rao, who is running for county commissioner and everything that is part of our network, and is joining us. So how are things going, Steve? How's the campaign going? What's happening in your world? You've joined us, so definitely want to give you a chance to say what's happening.
Well, thank you so much. And I guess that's a sabbatical year for me, so running hard. The campaign is going really well. I think we're officially one of the two front runners in the race. There's 2 seats, so it's going to be exciting. I'm going for the number 1 slot, but John Belton from Raleigh is running, and he represents 800,000 people in Raleigh, which is 800,000 out of 1 million. So we'll see. But I'm excited, and I'm getting a lot of support, and it's very busy. It's a big county, 1.1 million people. Between my work and everything, it's about 14-hour days. So I've been a little bit incognito, but I'll be back again frequently, and hope I can open up the show next week, one of the days. But real quickly, as I here for a few minutes, I want to just say it's so good seeing everybody. The big news that and Jacoby, it's great seeing you. I want to get with you offline. Jacoby, do you live in Wake County?
No, I'm actually I'm actually in Durham County, Durham County, right on the line between Wake and Durham, right near Briar Creek.
Well, text me your number. I got an idea of having you being a special guest for an event. I got an idea.
Okay.
So text me your number, and we'd be honored.
Yeah, I'll do that, definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to call you today. But real quickly, a couple of things. First of all, yesterday, what was interesting, I got invited by the state treasurer of North Carolina to Durham for an event. I didn't know what it was, but OpenAI announced a major 12-week pilot with the state treasurer's office. Mm-hmm. Dr. Ronnie Chatterjee from Duke, who ran for state treasurer, who's now an economist there, he's a professor, he was able to be there, and the mayor of Durham, and it was interesting. So I think it just shows that these companies are really getting out there in the sales mode. Wasn't a lot of details of what it means, but what does that mean for efficiencies in government? What does it mean for the stability of government employees? Before we get to national stuff, the other thing that I'm hearing about is the use of energy. As we talk a lot about AI, where's the energy going to come to power these large data centers? And that's an issue in Wade County and other areas that we're not talking enough about. But this is a national issue and a global issue because it's not the most sustainable technology, and it may not be good on the environment. So as we get more and more addicted to the AI and the Chat GPT searches, they need to be regulated or limited. So anyway, that's where we're at that. Lots going on nationally. I mean, obviously, the concern here, the security threats with texting national security secrets on our phones with Signal, not the best comforting thing there. The other thing I'll leave you with is I heard an interesting statistic given by Ezra Klein last week on Fareed Zakaria that out of the $25 billion that was invested in broadband, only 12 million Americans have broadband. And out of all of the monies invested in electric vehicle charging stations, Biden said he wanted to put 500,000 in. We only got 12 new ones. And the point was they've written a book called Abundance, that the Democrats have gotten very good about throwing money away to solve problems, but there's not enough infrastructure to show. And I feel that was a really good point. And I think that's where they've got to get back to thinking big. I think 26 will be a big year for them. I think they'll win some seats in the House and Senate. And I'd just like to get my colleagues' thoughts on this. And it's great. And also,
I have a thought is the one game the Republicans play with funding is they take a look at, this so many billion, and then we only have 12 charging stations. This is something that could be rectified, but that it takes years to get stuff approved and built. If you look at dams in California, the California government has been attacked because all these dams are supposed to go up. But if you look at how long it takes for them to get designed and approved, it's generally over a decade. So, and the charging stations, I've watched them go up and been frustrated because it takes freaking years to get charging stations built. And I assume that eventually we will get a ton of charging stations, but it takes a long time. And part of that is you have to do due diligence, but part of it is, we should go quicker. But it doesn't mean that this stuff will never get built. And then I have one more thing about AI and how much energy it consumes. I'm guessing that as AI improves, that the amount of energy required per question will decline as we get better. But hold on, but I mean, I've seen studies, and everybody's got their agenda that show that staying home and asking AI questions consumes a ton less energy than getting on an airplane and going someplace.
Yeah, just really quickly.
So with AI, with AI, the reason the power consumption will never go down is because technology improves at that same time. And because of technology improving and the actual the search with AI is consciousness. I mean, that's where we're going to end up with in the first place. So that just takes more computing technology, and then more computations. So, for example, there was a theory out there, and I think we talked about it before, that us living in a Dyson sphere. The reason why that is a theory is because the amount of computation power that it would take to create, for example, the birds flying, the bees buzzing, and all the other stuff is a tremendous amount of power. And so power consumption is always going to go up. Same with heat. Right. That is the one area that we should be able to deal with.
Hold on. I got counter arguments. Yeah, if you okay, so the most powerful applications of AI, where you're using the most computing, will the amount of energy as AI gets more powerful. Yeah, but Joe Schmo doesn't have. So two things. One is Joe Schmo, when he's dicking around on the computer, doesn't need all the freaking wattage of the most powerful AI. There will be economy AI, cheap AIs that don't hold on, that don't do as much computation for schmucks like me who are just dicking around. Thing two is hold on. Consciousness doesn't have to consume a bunch of energy. Every one of us is conscious. Our brains use less energy than a freaking old school light bulb.
Yeah, just
So
really quickly,
just to show out, hold on real quick, Mark, just to point out on AI and the technology situation, what you're saying hasn't borne out in reality in technology itself. For example, if you go on the internet now and the computer that you're using currently, that computer wasn't around 10 years ago. 10 years, the computer that's around, that was the TRS-80, isn't being used right now to jump you online. The Commodore 64 isn't being used currently right now by anybody to jump online. So when I'm talking about the technology improvements, that's what I'm trying to point out, is that yes, cell phones are going to become different. Laptops are going to become different. All this technology is going to become different. That is where, again, to fill out what the needs of the consumer are, because what we see with AI isn't what actually AI. There's so much more that AI is actually doing in our society that we're not even recognizing. So that technology is only going to grow from, if you look at facial recognition technology that's out there, that's utilizing AI. So who's going to actually invest in that? That's where you're going to get, different security firms that are going to invest more in that and want that technology to grow. Your average individual that is actually, you're talking about the regular Joe Schmo, that Joe Schmo, yes, they're going to get cheap AI, but that doesn't mean that there's less power consumption from Joe Schmo. He's just tapping into a computer that's not actually opened up all the way. He's running into blocks. It's, for example, if you look at the car technology today, deals with, honestly, AI, as well as if you look at BMW, who got hit because people don't want to pay for this extra stuff on their cars to be able to do particular things. Well, you know what? They have full access to it if they can hack it, but they cannot hack it because you have AI technology and the encryptions that are all there. So the technology is not going to slow down. The AI consumption is still going to continue to grow.
You're right. We will switch over to a compute economy that the world's economy will be built around computing information and the cost of information and computing. But that means that, that people but we already are making fewer human computation agents. We're making fewer babies because we are so distracted by the new world of streaming entertainment. People argue we're so distracted that we're not fucking anymore. We're not making couples anymore, and the population will start declining after the 2050s. That's an aspect of the compute economy. One more thing. The per capita carbon footprint of Americans declines by 1% a year thanks to new technology. So I believe we will find a cheaper way. Now, overall, the amount of energy consumed by computing will go up and up and up, but I don't think it will lead to, some horrible freaking thing.
We got Sasha here.
Again, we don't know where it's going to lead, but it's just a matter of the computer technology is going to keep going. The power consumption is going to keep growing. The big area that we need to focus on a lot is the heat, the amount of heat that comes off of it. And that's another area where that deals with battery technology, the amount of electricity that's coming through everything. Because take, for example, a few years ago when Samsung was having such a big problem is when they jumped into a brand new phone technology that they were using. And guess what? Their phones were exploding. That's a heat thing. So we have to figure out the heat area, and because to cool them now, it deals with water.
Let's explain. When your computer runs, if you have your laptop on your lap and you're like going crazy with it, you can feel it heat up because computation produces waste heat. That's what you're talking about. And if the
Yep.
whole planet is covered by things computing, that creates a dangerous amount of heat. So we will have to figure out how to pipe the heat away from the Earth's surface, or do computing in orbit, or frickin', figure out how to move the heat elsewhere.
Yeah, Rick and Toby, just really quickly, we got, I know that Sasha was trying to bring up a point about Dr. Stephen Moran and his User's Guide to Restructuring the Global Trading System. So I don't know if he wants to explain that maybe to Steve and others that are listening. So Sasha, you were bringing that up and everything. So I don't know if you want to explain to our audience about that and all along those lines. And then we've got Nick with us as well. And we've all got a few more minutes.
It's 40 pages of highly, I would say, unusual document, important document, because that's where Trump gets his economic idea, tariffs issue, and anything else. It's all there. So if we don't read it, and Trump reads only that and nothing else, so you will not understand what he is doing. And it's very important for your well-being, including financial, to understand what's going on. What's going on now is complete destruction of United States of America. Internally and on the world stage, it's losing its leadership. It's no longer a country that people can trust to, and it's country that has to be avoided at all cost. Any contact with this country is becoming toxic. Look at Ukraine was trying to do some kind of business with US. So there was a first agreement. Then it was substantially augmented to second one. And finally, 2 days ago came the third version of the agreement that now covers not just rare metals, all oil, gas, the uranium, just anything that Ukraine has in its possession, everything is covered by that agreement. And the controlling group will have 3 American representatives and 2 Ukrainians. And that company first will have to recover all the money that America paid since 2022 supporting Ukraine. And once that's done, then the profits will be, if there will be any, will be split between the sides. And that's, of course, this will not be signed 100%. And this is an excuse. Trump was looking for exit strategy on Ukraine, because nothing whatever he's trying to do that except some geschäfts for him and his friends, like Steve Wilcott, who happened to be a business partner on real estate developments of someone by the name Leonard Blavatnik, who is a Russian oligarch based in London, England, and who is on top of all other oligarchs like Abramovich and all the other little things. So this is what Trump is doing. He's trying to, Ukraine is his enemy. Why? Because if there will be a creation of a European army, with Ukraine is one thing, and without Ukraine, there will be no European army. So all he has to do is to demolish Ukraine, to get it capitulated, to get, his plan is to have some kind of a 30 days peace agreement. During the 30 days, Ukraine would hold election. Zelensky will be replaced by whoever, and whoever will come into power, if and when will happen, they will sign a peace agreement, which will be more like a capitulation agreement, not a peace agreement. So this is what Trump is trying to do with Ukraine. To going farther, once he will neutralize Europe, then he will restructure debt of United States. So the $37 trillion debt will be replaced with a 100 years debt instrument, which will pay no interest whatsoever, only 100 years later. And all countries would have to agree to that. And those who will not, they might as well be in war with the United States, with the real one. So finally, Trump at a certain point will have to use his military.
That's crap debt. That'll be debt that countries will be forced to acquire at the point of our guns. Right now, we're a good investment. We sell bonds to cover our budget shortfalls to other countries, and other countries get a good return on their investment in the U.S.
Not really. What percentage is being paid there? What, 3-4%?
All right, but it's been a reliable investment for decades.
So far, yes.
But now Trump wants to scuttle that and replace a decent thing that works for us and for the world with crap debt that no country will frickin' want.
Well, I have no comments. I have to go to Ukrainian show right now.
No problem. We're ready to wrap up and everything.
All right, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to wrap up because I've got to run, but it's just a great. It's just such a. Let me just end my monologue today. My time with you today on. There's a lot of people out there too in America scared, uncertain about the future. Yesterday during a work session or a city council meeting, a couple of issues came up. One, we're trying to forecast our budgets and cities don't know what's going to happen because of the federal cuts. Thousands of people in Morrisville and the Triangle are losing their jobs from EPA, federal agencies, research at universities. Are we going to head into a recession if the tariffs hit and construction costs and costs go up? How is that going to affect our budgets and local governments? And in North Carolina, we're worried about the governor saying we're approaching a fiscal cliff, and much of our budget is going to help Western North Carolina. The bottom line is people are scared. People are afraid. They don't really know what's going to happen in the future. And I think this is something that we're going to talk about. I think Trump's strategy is scaring people across all spectrums, including Republicans. I'll close with this. The state treasurer, Brad Briner, when asked, who's a Republican, the one who hosted OpenAI at the venture conference, someone asked him about Trump policies and federal cuts and how it would affect his office. And he just smiled and said, no comment. And this is a Republican treasurer in North Carolina. So the bottom line is the game is on, the game is changing, and watch your wallet, because I think America may be heading back into a dark time in terms of job loss, recession, economy, on top of times that are already troubling. Not to be a pessimist, but enjoy the Final Four to pick you up, put you in a good mood.
Yeah, definitely. And on that note, we're going to get on out of here.
One more thing. I just want to go back to waste heat for a second.
Text me your number. Thank you.
There's a reason that they don't build cities on Venus and on the moon, because those things are cooked. The sun is too hot to do anything. Venus is too hot to do anything because they can't shed heat efficiently enough. I found an article. Infinity Turbine says it can turn AI data center waste heat into electricity. We'll find workarounds like that, but there are still thermodynamic realities we'll have to deal with. But yeah, if we turn into a planet that is all computation all the time, that will create huge engineering difficulties.
Yep.
At some point, though, we just have to invest in it. But that's another battle, because right now we're not. We're cutting away from it.
Yeah, and on that note, we're going to get on out of here. We've got other shows to do, so get ready to get on out of here. But we'll catch more of this discussion later on next week and in other shows. But y'all have a good one, and we'll be back later on with other shows here on the network.